Hi guys, welcome to Barbells and Black Belts. My name is Tyler Beckley, and today on the podcast we're going to be having my friend Todd Williams. He's a two-time Olympic runner. He's also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he's also an academy owner here in Monroe, Michigan. As always, check me out on Instagram at BeckleyT and also on Patreon, Beckley Strength BJJ, for more long-form content, and hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Hi guys, welcome into Barbells and Black Belts. This is episode 3, and I am here with my friend Todd Williams. Todd is a two-time Olympian. He is also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Just got his 4th degree on his black belt this last week. Congratulations, Todd. And he's also an academy owner as well. Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about a couple of topics for, obviously, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coaching. We're going to be talking about a couple of Todd's previous experiences. I'm going to ask him a few questions about the Olympics and, obviously, some of our mentalities towards coaching, competing, and just going about our day-to-day life on getting our workouts in and doing the things that we're supposed to do too. So without anything else, I'm going to leave it over to Todd. Todd Williams. Todd, tell us a little bit about yourself, bro.
Well, first, thanks for having me, Tyler. This is awesome. Appreciate you. Yeah, a little background. We're here in Monroe, Michigan, and that's where it all started for me. Did my elementary schooling here, my middle school, high school, but really getting into athletics started early. Really at age 4 or 5, started swimming at the local Monroe YMCA. Started hammering there with 2-a-day swimming starting at age 7. Jumped into a little bit of wrestling at age 8, 9. And then I went the normal route that all my friends were doing. So I did a lot of football, baseball, basketball. And then I just had some great people around me here in Monroe that kind of guided me in the right direction, along with having a great family. And in 9th grade is where I really jumped into the running world. And I know you mentioned the couple Olympic teams, but if it wasn't for Monroe and the people I had here, there wasn't a chance that I was going to make those Olympic teams through my experiences at Monroe Junior High and Monroe High School. So started running in 9th grade, hit some pretty fast times. But again, I had Coach Randy Monday and Coach Rick Kleinsmith said, hey, you need to stop the football, you need to stop the basketball, you need to stop baseball and really take your work ethic and work as hard as you do in those fields, and you can really accomplish some big things. And from that point forward, really in 9th grade, I just started working my can off. My dad always told me, don't miss a practice, and when you do show up to practice, make sure that coach remembers your name. And that's what I try to do. I try to win all the conditioning drills, from the jumping jacks to the wind sprints to you name it. I always tried to make sure that coach is like, we've got to, this guy's doing the right things. And my time started to drop in high school. And next thing you know, I had the opportunity to get a full scholarship to run at the University of Tennessee after winning 6 state titles at Monroe High School in cross country and track. Got the full ride to University of Tennessee. Chose Tennessee over Texas, LSU, University of Florida, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and Nebraska. I guess that was my trips. So I chose the Vols in 1987. From there, I just set my goals extremely high and, wanted to be the SEC champ as a freshman, wanted to accomplish big things at University of Tennessee. And it seems like a blur now that I'm almost 56 years old that, it goes by so quick. But during that time, my goal was to be an NCAA champ. And by my senior year, we won the NCAA team championship. And I led us in points that year to win the title. And then from there, I was fortunate to continue to work hard and stay healthy. I had good people around me. I wish I could name all my coaches, and maybe we can get into that later on in the podcast. But from there, I had Coach Doug Brown and Coach George Watts. They told me, they said, look, your collegiate career is over now. If you keep working your butt off and keep making smart decisions, you're going to have a chance to make the Olympics. And, I was like, okay, now it's really time to start working, even though I thought I was already working really hard. And then from there, I worked hard, put in the miles and, thousands of miles per year and made the 1992 Olympic team that where I participated in Barcelona. And, when I think about that one in 92, it's like people thought I wasn't going to make it, right? I was thinking I was seated 19th, and I ended up making that team and being able to go to Barcelona. And then fast forward to 96, I made the 96 Olympic team at 10,000 meter. And, I could go on all day of the great experiences I had. But, in a nutshell, Monroe, Michigan is the heartbeat of who I am with my family and great coaches and the ability to work hard. And then from there, taking it to UT and then running professionally until 2002. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. I don't want to take too much time on that.
No, I mean, on the pre-show, I was asking Todd to kind of introduce himself a little bit. And every time that, like, he kind of does something like that, I learn a little bit about my friend Todd, which I pretty much only know from jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Like, for a few years, like, I didn't know you when you were running, professionally and things like that. And it's I think, kind of your personality. Like, Todd doesn't like you don't talk to me a whole bunch about Olympic stuff unless it's on a podcast or something like that too. Because I just think it's in your mentality to be like, well, let's talk about jiu-jitsu. What are we doing tomorrow? What are we doing today?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's always his mentality too. So, thank you each time. It gets me into my next topic that I really brought him onto the show to talk a little bit more about was, on my last podcast, me and Gary Young were talking about guys that were only 3 days, and then they're like, yeah, I'm going to be in the UFC. It's something that you kind of smiled at first. You're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean,
when you were saying even in high school, the thing that when you came into the University of Findlay and talked to the cross country team, I mean, some of their eyes got real big with you saying the kind of volume that you were pushing, going from high school and then everything up. I think your coach was like, I need you to get 100 miles over the spring or whatever the numbers were, Todd, that you could tell us. But and they keep going up and up and up, man.
Yeah,
like the demand.
And I think this. You're a great coach and you're doing great things with your athletes and you're doing a lot of great things in Findlay. It's you have to work hard, and I didn't really know. My dad and my mom, that's what I did from day one. Even in age group swimming at the YMCA, I never wanted to miss a practice. I don't know if that was the way I was wired from age 0. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I just hated missing practice, and I always wanted to be the hardest worker. If it was in the swimming pool, if it was on the football field, basketball court, baseball diamond, it drove me. I never wanted to miss, and then when I jumped into running, and when I think about the miles that I put in, I kept a log every single year starting in 1983 until I retired from professional running in 2002, where I would chart AM, it would say 6 miles, PM, it would say 9, and then the next day would be a different type of workout that my coaches would give me. So that was another thing when my dad would always say, listen to the coaches, trust in your coaches, have confidence in your coaches. And I was lucky to have great coaches. Yeah. So if they would have told me to run through a brick wall, I would have had brick, my face would have looked like a brick. So and then again, the time goes by so fast. And so when you do hear an athlete, that you're coaching or that I'm coaching, and they think they can get away with, 2 days a week or 3 days a week, you do kind of laugh and you don't want to embarrass your athlete, but you got to be honest with them and say, if your goals are here, then your work ethic has to be here. There is no, here's your goals here, and we're going to do a little bit here, and we're going to maybe get lucky and make it there. It's maybe there's that rare case that you do find someone that doesn't train as hard that makes it to the high level, and I don't like those athletes that much. Yeah. But they are out there. But the percentages say you're going to have to grind. It's going to be tough. You're going to have to battle through tough days, and that's the only way you're going to put yourself in position to do well.
I guess even taking it from sports, like some of the same ways, like especially as me and you've grown a little bit older, and as we do jiu-jitsu as we age too, like you start to figure out that it's the same message whether you're trying to go for the Olympics. I have it later in the show, but you called it your gold medal. Yeah. You got to go for your gold medal, and you were like, at a time it was a literal physical gold medal in the Olympics was your gold medal that you were going for. Right. But sometimes it's like, I hear from people like they open up a business, right? Let's just use that. If your gold medal is to get the business open, to make the business profitable, like your ass better put in the work or you ain't, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's the same thing though, of whether it's you going out and running 145 miles, you were saying, in the Smoky Mountains, or it's whatever it's going to take. Whatever it's going to take.
And you got to have the passion with it. That's the biggest thing. Everything that, you've done in the past, or I've tried to accomplish, in the past and in the present and future, I love it. When I got up to run, people think this is what I love, getting up at 5 or 6 in the morning, doing my push-ups, doing my crunches, stretching, and then doing my runs. I loved it. And with my jiu-jitsu, it's
like getting up at 5 part though?
I just because I figured if I didn't, somebody else was going to outwork me.
That's right.
And just like I was talking to a school owner last week, and I said, even if I show up in the afternoon and there's one student there, and I'm teaching a scissor sweep, or I'm teaching a hip bump sweep, or I'm teaching an outside trip, something super that we've done thousands of times, you have to act like that's the most important. And it should be the most important technique that you're teaching ever, because that one student is relying on you to teach them a skill that they don't have. And that's the way I look at every day that I wake up. It's like one could show up or 50 could show up. Yeah. I'm still putting on that show, and I better bring the heat during that show, or I'm doing my students a disservice, and I probably should stop owning a school.
When you said it like that, like I have 5. Our ADHD, we think of these stories from someone else, you know.
Yeah.
Like I have the exact same story, and of how I was in that place. And one of the big ones for me was seeing George when he originally came up in our old academy in Toledo. And George came down to teach a seminar, and it wasn't a great turnout from say the time before when Sanji came in, you know, like we got 65 people there or something like that. And I remember the instructor there, the guy that we knew that owned the academy, he was kind of upset about it and blah, blah, blah. And George was not. George was like, I see a bunch of people that want to learn jiu-jitsu. And I mean, his attitude was completely the opposite. Like his attitude was like, hey, Tyler's here to learn jiu-jitsu, and he was enthusiastic to teach me jiu-jitsu. Like you wouldn't have known it was a bad situation or anything, but it really wasn't. It was one of the better seminars I've ever been to.
Exactly.
Too, so
yeah.
And glad you came down for George's seminar last week too. He's a phenomenal instructor, and I mean,
great person to talk to. A lot of stories. We had kind of a connection with Soneka because that was my first instructor. But I had a great time last week. But again, you can see the passion with his work ethic.
It's easy.
Exactly. And that's kind of, you know, going back to my running career and athletic career. Yeah, that was the main part of it. Besides having a great family, great coaches, and guidance, it's like I freaking love it. Yeah. You know, like this morning, I got up, I run an hour. It's like I have a passion for my students. I got to show up and I got to be ready. You know, I'm drinking decaf and I'm still pumped up right now, right? Because you know, I had surgery on my bicep. They tell me, hey, you probably shouldn't do anything for a year. I'm like, I was teaching the next day in a sling because I love what I do, and I think that's the lesson. Try to find something you truly love, and you're not BSing. You're genuine, and then your students and people around you are going to go, I want to be around that. Yeah. I want to be around that because it feeds that. But if I posted something the other day that said, you are who you hang out with. You know, that sounds simple, but how many people choose to hang out with the wrong people and they start doing wrong things? And that was another thing. My great friends here at Monroe, they understood once I made the decision that I want to be a collegiate athlete. I want to be a state champion or try to be. I want to be an All-American. You know, they knew, hey, Todd's going to be over there running. He's going to be over there in the weight room. Super supportive, right? Yeah. And that's what you got to have. Now, could I have made bad decisions? Of course. But then I had this group of people here and group of people here like, let's get on this, let's get on the train and do something positive. And that's another big part of being successful is hanging with the right people.
I'm going over to a local high school in our area. I'm going to be doing it later this month and talking to. They have a group of kids over there that's pretty rough shape, and they're just trying to get more, which I told them, hey, thank you for thinking about me. It's tough to put me in the adult role sometimes. Yeah. They're like role models of like men or businessmen and stuff. They particularly wanted the men thing too, just because some of the kids, they don't have good respect for like women. They're all female teachers and stuff. And just like, essentially she wants me to come over and talk about being a professional and being an adult and being, having empathy and treating people the right way and things like that. It all kind of comes together too. Like what you're saying is like when you're hanging out with certain people, and this is everybody all the way from a kid all the way up to adults, because it never stops. Yeah. If you got someone that's supporting you in your goal of like, I'm trying to get to bed on time, I'm trying to eat good, I'm trying to go to practice, I'm trying to go to work, I'm trying to be better at life.
Trying to deal with difficult days.
Exactly. And if you got people that aren't supporting that, then it was the same as when you were in high school and you missed workouts because they just wanted you to, drink all the time or whatever else. Or
make bad decisions. And even here at Monroe Jiu-Jitsu with the kids class, I really stress it's just not about jiu-jitsu. It's like helping your training partner. Be a good training partner, encourage people. And I know that's cliche to say, but it's just fact, right? You have to have the people around you that's trying to level you up. Because, as you know, in football or in any sport or anything that we do in life, there's going to be people that just aren't as good at that particular skill. Sure. But if they have somebody that's encouraging them, they can get to the next level. And that kind of goes into what you're talking about, like, what's your gold medal? Yeah. Everyone has one. People always, not always, but they'll say, oh, you made the Olympics. And I'll say, yeah. And they're like, oh, that's cool. Did you win a gold medal? And I'll go, no. And they'll go, oh. And I'm like, what? I don't really, it happens so many times, but as I got older, I realized I understand why they say that because, everybody think the gold medal, but then I started thinking every person when they wake up in the morning, they have their own gold medal. Like you can have a gold medal day or you can have a crappy day. You're the one that has to make the choice when you go to bed at night to go, did I do everything possible during that day to be the best that I can be? And did I do everything possible for my students to be the best that they can be? And that's your gold medal for that day.
Yeah.
If you choose to compete, like I think you're going to do Arnold's coming up, maybe?
Possibly.
So I'm just
had my problems with that tournament last year, by golly.
But let's say your next competition you choose to do, you're gonna every day that you wake up for preparation, you're gonna want to when you smack hands with that guy and you finish win or lose, you got to walk back to the car and go, hey, I did the best I could do. I got third, or I got first, or I didn't make it to the final. Whatever it is, just like when I finished 10th in the Olympic Games in '92, and then I dropped out in '96. It was a horrible day in my athletic career, but I had to deal with that. But I know when I look back on my preparation, I have no regrets. And when I retired from running, zero regrets because I put in 65,000, almost 70,000 miles in my running career and all those training logs, right? And then in my jiu-jitsu, I have no regrets because I know even to this day, I woke up this morning, I'm running an hour. I'm doing my push-ups. I'm doing my rehab of my arm. I'm preparing for my lessons. So that's what I do, and that's the way I'm wired. And sometimes it's bad for my students or people around me because they will look at me and go, man, you're kind of crazy. I'm like, well, I want you to be a little crazy too, because it's not a bad thing when you make smart decisions. It's not a bad thing when you're helping other people. It's not a bad thing when you're helping your community. How are those bad things?
Yeah.
If I wanted to be really bad, I could hang out at bars all the time and go crazy. And again, not that I haven't done that once in a while because I'm not Mr. Perfect, but what I found out through my life at, going on 56 is I would much rather make much more smarter decisions and help my community and help my students, help myself, help my family, than waste seconds doing those bad decisions.
I think, which absolutely, I agree with all of that. Yeah. I mean, it's okay. One of the sayings that we used to say at the University of Findlay with our sports teams is you had to sign your name on the paper, whether it was bad or good, know, but either way, it's like, just like you had a homework assignment and you sign it on there. It's like, that was Todd's morning. Right. That was Todd's practice. Right. You know what I mean? Those were your roles or whatever. Yeah. And sometimes it's like there's a book recently that I was reading where they said one of the rules, it's called The Four Agreements. It's a pretty good book, by the way. And it's super simplified, but the one is that you have to do your best. And sometimes if people are trying to do more than their best, then maybe I'll give you an example. They were sick, and they tried to do more than their best. That's an easy one. So you're not allowed to do more than your best, and you're not allowed to do less than your best. Yeah. You see what I mean? And it's like, and each time that you do a workout or something, or each time that you spend an afternoon doing nothing but watching Netflix, you gotta sign your name on the paper, good or bad. It's in the books.
And it's so easy to get distracted nowadays. I mean, and people, there's certain people that just want to talk about certain things that we kind of talked about before the podcast. And the next thing you know, you're wasting 7 to 10 hours a week, and you realize, why did I do that when I could have bbeen preparing my curriculum for my students or studying video of my student at a competition or helping somebody in a certain,
actually making an impact,
making a difference. Right. Yeah. And then if you add up all that time and you've watched podcasts, I've watched podcasts where they say this, but again, it just reinforces how important it is no matter who you are. Try not to waste minutes in your life. Try to do things that are important. Try to do things that are going to help you, your family, your friends, and your community, because the clock ticks fast. And the older you get, you can see this gray hair. It's not stopping.
I'm getting it, brother.
But there's just a lot of people that waste time on. To me, it's just dumb stuff.
We get if you were to going back to stuff that I learned from my MBA. When you have a business, you have a mission, you have values and things that you can break them down. If your values, your core values, are going towards the mission, obviously they should. So basically, if habits that you're doing, if some of the things in your life that you do repetitively, they should be going towards the mission. So whatever it is for the company, that's an easy one because you can kind of look at them a little bit more, pull yourself back, so to speak. And it's sometimes a little bit more difficult for someone to do that with themselves because you got to look inward a lot. And I think that's a good thing about jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, it's real easy to kind of look at yourself, because especially if you go compete, you're like, No, I have been preparing like ass, basically.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't been going to bed. I
Yeah.
haven't been getting the rolls in because it's real easy to see if you
Yeah.
put a product on the mat that's not very good. Not to say that if you lose, you know, because we all
Yeah.
know that one, but if you competed and you lost, but that was a good guy. He was a real
Right.
good athlete, and I was playing my game good. I mean, you're probably still going to feel good about yourself because it's honesty.
Yeah.
It's like, I
Yeah.
did my best, you know?
And even then, like, you know, there's going to be students, and it could be inside. Like, there's certain competitions that you just mess up,
Yeah, man.
and then you have to just face it.
Yeah.
You got to go. I made a bad mistake, you know, but guess what? I'm not going to let that defeat me. I'm going to go ahead and figure this mistake out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to get back on the mat. I'm going to keep going, you know, and that's the thing. I've been blessed to hang out with a lot of really successful people, you know, like we talk about at the Olympics. We've talked about this in the past where, you asked me, you know, what was the coolest thing about the Olympics? To me, it was meeting great people. It was meeting really driven people, and you know, then they went on in their lives and became super successful in different channels. And I think the biggest common denominator with those, besides being hyper focused and having passion, is they have a great ability. And I have this ability, I feel, where when people say you can't do something, you wake up and go, no, I know that you're wrong. You know, and it started from day one with me. Like, you know, let's say I set my goal to be a state champ, you know, in track and field or cross country. There in my head, and I think Michael Jordan used to do this, maybe not that many people did say that Michael couldn't be great, or maybe not that many people told me that I couldn't do it, but in my head, everybody was telling me that. So then I would say, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong, you know. And then when I got to you'll never get a full scholarship. You'll never get a college degree. You know, you're an athlete, your grade points, because I didn't take school that serious, you know, at the high school. You're never going to make it. Oh, really? Okay. Then I'm going to show you that I can make it. Never going to be an NCAA champ. I led, you know, Tennessee, and then making the Olympics. What? Making the Olympics is for other people. It's not for people from this, you know, Monroe. It's not. And then, you know, I just wake up every day and that kind of, I push that to the side, but I also let it motivate me, and then take it all the way to now to Monroe Jiu-Jitsu in the mat. I love looking at that mat because it gets me excited. But, you know, I think about opening up a school in Monroe. You know, it's a small town. This building that we're in was vacant since, I believe, the 60s that we're sitting in here. This, you know, I've turned it into a beautiful space, and I love it.
Absolutely.
But like when I first knew that I was going to open, there was a lot of like, you know, there's a lot of schools here and there's a lot of schools there. But you got to push that aside and say, if I work and I sacrifice and I wake up with the want to do it, then I know that I can make it. And here I am sitting on going into year number 8, and students are, you know, learning and having fun, and we're making an impact in the community. And we're in Monroe Public Schools now. I got jiu-jitsu into, you know, after school activities, and you know, I'm always trying to figure out ways to be better each and every year. Like you walked in just a second ago, and you're like, oh, the Cubbies,
Sure.
right? There's that. Oh, there's these signs. You know, so even if it's something, even if there's something as small as that, I'm always trying to dig and work hard to make it better. And the naysayers can go ahead and take a step to the side.
Each time that me and Aim have done something else for the business too, it's like you get to see the people that are going to support you anyway. It's like they start being more magnified. The more that you do, those people, you know who's the real ones on there too.
Right.
And if anybody, if they have a problem with it, I guess you don't have to come to Monroe Jiu-Jitsu. It's pretty cool if you did, but it's like you just start learning that over time. That you just
and in saying that, I
you
think
believe in what you do.
Yeah, and
then,
a huge part of it, not, you know, just for us, but like, you know, if you're spreading positive energy and you're like, hey, go, if you're anywhere near the Finley area, hit Tyler and Amy at Finley Jiu-Jitsu. Spread that, right? And then keep spreading positivity. Because I just had 2 students, or one just opened up a school, Celine Jiu-Jitsu with Matt Miller. He just opened up last week. Adam Ackerman's opened up Upstream Jiu-Jitsu in Ipsy. So I'm spreading the word. It's like, I'm happy for them. But then other people would say, well, yeah, but isn't that going to take away from you? I'm like, no.
like, what are you worried about?
I'm not.
Like,
I know that I'm going to be here working
That's
hard.
To kind of segue this, as we were going to talk about, the next thing on the list was run safer and your travels and stuff too. But it's another good point of why we're here. When you've went to different academies, I'd say probably the overwhelming majority, if you would agree with me, is always pretty welcoming that you've been to. I'd say upwards of 95% or more.
Yeah, I mean, I was
Jiu-Jitsu academies that are like, hey, come on in, man, let's roll.
when I was going through the Run Safer Business, and for those that don't know, in a quick nutshell of what that was, I took my black belt in Jiu-Jitsu and my 2 Olympic teams, and I created a company called Run Safer that was sponsored by ASICS. So ASICS would designate which running stores that I would go to and teach a 1-hour seminar on the importance of safety for runners, joggers, and walkers. So they would say, hey, go to Anchorage, Alaska. And I'd say, okay, I'm going to go to Anchorage. And then there's a running store there called Skinny Raven. And then I would do a 60-minute presentation. And then I was fortunate to be able to train in all these cities, from Anchorage to LA to San Diego to Portland, Maine, you name it, Boston, hundreds of schools that I got to go to over a 3 or 4 year period. And again, to your point, 95% of those schools were super welcoming, great people. I learned so much. And that's the reason when I opened up Monroe Jiu-Jitsu, I tried to take a notebook and write the pros and cons of everything that I saw during those times. And I tried to incorporate that into my business plan when I opened up Monroe Jiu-Jitsu. But the coolest part of all is, just like making the Olympics, the coolest part of all my jiu-jitsu journey isn't tapping people or isn't, getting the 4th degree. It's meeting cool people.
Yeah, like I tell that to people, like all of our students who are like, you go on vacation, find jiu-jitsu. I guarantee you'll meet somebody.
Yeah, like we went to Franklin. Look, you met Jeremy Aiken, and that was a cool experience. Great school.
I got a picture of that guy in my house.
Right. Awesome school, right?
Yeah.
And then you coached me at the IBJJF Nashville right after that. So, and that was the only reason I met you is through Jiu-Jitsu, right? And that's where it brings so many different people. Even like my first instructor, Seneca, in Knoxville, Tennessee. If it wasn't for his kindness when I walked in there in April 2002, and he was so welcoming, it was just him and I don't know if I would have stayed with it, but he was just awesome. And so, then Seneca, move on to Luis Pajares, and before that was Pedrino Brandao. So I had a lot of great people around me in my jiu-jitsu world that guided me. And then that's what I always say with my Run Safer, meeting great people, with jiu-jitsu, meeting great people, with my running career. I've just been, really fortunate to be able to shake hands and have conversations with some successful people that are on this side of the fence, that are encouraging, that are positive, that are hard work. I just crack myself with a microphone. But that kind of, it pushes those negative people over here, and you're still gonna have to deal with them. Yeah, you're still gonna hear rumblings like, "Well, that person said that." But the more you can shut that off,
they get tuned out.
Yeah, you got to tune them out.
I mean, even when we I'll give you an easy example of a guy that was just like George JT Torres when he came up. We went out and we had tacos afterwards, which was core memory for me. Yeah. Shout out JT Torres.
Yeah, awesome.
And Amaya's in Monroe, Michigan.
Yes.
And JT was still we'd talk about other stuff, and then jiu-jitsu would pop up, and you'd see him just we talking about jiu-jitsu? Let's go.
Yeah, it was
he's like, let's go. I mean, Marcelo was another one. We were out there, just another core memory, having tacos with Marcelo Garcia. Yeah. But I mean, he would just anytime we would start talking about jiu-jitsu and stuff, he would just he would love to just talk about the community and stuff.
Yeah.
And one topic came up that was an older guy in jiu-jitsu, not even to mention who it was or say anything, but an older guy who's kind of got into some trouble got mentioned, and Marcelo deflated.
Yes.
And no, let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
it was just he just wants to talk about that positivity. And moving forward. And I was you said about 20 minutes ago about being like the people that you're around,
right? And you mentioned there's so many stories. It's I remember I was a blue belt, and this is 2006, and Marcelo had just come off backpacking everybody, choking everybody at ADCC previous year. So I'm going to have him to Jacksonville for a seminar. I get a hold of his wife, set it up. He comes to Jacksonville, Florida. Pick him up at the airport, cruising around. You would go by my house. Would you like to train? I had mats in my garage. I'm a blue belt. Marcelo is Marcelo of that one at that time, unbelievable. And, even to this day, he's unbelievable. But, here we are in my garage as a blue belt. We're training, and then fast forward to the 2024, here comes Marcelo, and I pick him up, go to my house. Hey, you just want to go to your gym and train for an hour. So, the it's the fantasy of jiu-jitsu is they love it. They have the passion, they have the work ethic. And you've been here for numerous seminars and so many great people that we've been able to meet through jiu-jitsu. But the common denominator again is They love it. JT loves it. Marcelo loves it. Bernardo Faria loves it. Josh Hinger loves it. Dean Lister loves, I could just keep going with names.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you mention jiu-jitsu, it's like fireworks start going off behind their head. And then that's contagious. And then we have that same type of passion. Then your students get that type of passion. And then it just keeps going. Legacy builds.
When I was a strength coach at the university, I would tell some of my coaches that there's a couple of those kids that you would see, like, I'll give you an easy example. Some of these German kids that we had on the soccer team, they were like, if you saw something that looked like a soccer ball, they were going to start playing.
Yeah.
Like they'd be walking to dinner with their nice clothes and a soccer ball would roll out. They're like, let's catch a game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like they had that attitude though because they love soccer. I'm like, that's what you need. That's the kid you want is like, you gotta like have ball will play.
Yeah.
And like as you said, Marcelo gets off the plane.
Have gi will roll.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's just and even if, he's still pretty good without that gi,
Yeah.
It's like
no gi or gi.
That attitude of just like he's just gonna train. And also learning, going back to something we talked about before about learning how to train too. Marcelo will probably have, I don't know, his kid or something and be like, here, let's go train. You know what I mean? He's still going to train with that person too because training's training either way. So we got so much like cool things to talk about, I guess. So the other one that I wanted to kind of circle back to a little bit was talking about your writing things down approach. So people listening, that it's more of a practical thing because it's a common thing that I get asked as a coach. It's something that me and Amy both started trying to do was write down things. Because something you said to me, it was like a year and a half ago. You were like, how many rolls did you do last year? I'm like, I don't know, a lot. And you were like telling me numbers. And I'm like, maybe I should plan those things down a lot more.
Well, I think every
advice I'd give a white belt.
I think every moment on the mat should be impactful. So, like, if you're going to do 30 rounds a week, or you're going to do 16 rounds a week, or you're going to do, I think you should be able to write down what you're trying to accomplish within that round. So, like, if you're working on collar sleeve, or you're working on a certain takedown, or you're writing this down to have focus. Just like with my running, like I knew that I was doing intervals or a tempo run on Mondays. Tuesday was a recovery day. Wednesday is going to be hard, short intervals. Saturday is going to be hills, right? Sunday is long run. And my mind works like that. With my jiu-jitsu, I tell my students the same thing. If you can write things down, especially now that we're in the time of BJJ Fanatics and Instagram and all the ways that we can give information, if we're working on overhook, close guard, maybe 2 submissions off the overhook, right? Write that down as your tag word for the day, and then you can study for 20 minutes tonight before you go to bed, instead of getting on some conversation that people are talking about right now that we're not going to talk about. But you know what I mean? Spend 20 minutes on overhook chokes. And so and then they're like, oh.
Or even just what you said, there's so much information. Like there's some pages that anybody who's in BJJ that follows an Instagram page, you get like a reel where they do a berimbolo and then another berimbolo and then another thing and then another roll and then the uki is just going like this the whole time. Yeah. Maybe to teach you how to crab ride or something, but there's so much like garbage out there just to say it. And you're talking about close guard overhook, like go look up some close guard overhook stuff, streamline it just like you were going to learn. I mean, if you were going to be learning a science lesson and we're doing whatever, we're learning about something with the planets or whatever, like why are we going to go start researching flowers or something? It's like it's the same kind of thing. Like you gotta
stay laser focused because
there
is too much information.
There's
because
too much
when I started,
and
when you started, we had, I think it was Grappling Magazine. I'd go to Barnes and Noble and I would sit there. And I'd sit there with these, the one picture would look
University,
like a picture like this, and then the next picture really wouldn't make sense to that picture, but you're like, man, that's pretty good. And then, then that was the way we had him. Then it all happened. And I'll never forget Bernardo. I had him at my house in Jacksonville for a seminar in 2013 when he was kind of in the process of starting BJJ Fanatics.
Yeah.
And he stayed up all night. You're talking about work ethic. Like, not only was he 4-time world champ, in the gi and did amazing things on the mat, his work ethic carried right over to BJJ Fanatics. And now look where it's at 11, 12 years later. And now people can benefit from that. But I think the issue with too much information is everybody wants to accelerate their jiu-jitsu before they get the basic fundamentals down of shrimping, bridging, break fall, stand up and base, the drills that, we've done thousands of times. They just want to fast track to the De La Hiva X, deep De La Hiva, Berimbolo, heel hook, honey hole, and I'm like, this is your third day.
I got asked for what was it, Goga Plata?
Yeah,
like a white belt. Was like, I saw this Goga Plata. I was like, just.
Did he pronounce it right? Like, Gaga.
I think he did.
Did he get it right? Yeah.
But he was like, I was watching a fight, and I think it was Nick Diaz. Remember, he had like Takanori Gomi?
Yeah.
I think it was like one of the last Pride fights or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was like watching one. He was like, yeah, can you show me that? I was like, no. We're going to hip escape.
Yeah. And the thing is, and you know this, when you send when your athletes, they decide to compete, right? Your white belts, your blue belts, especially your white belts. When they go to a tournament, it's fundamentals. Like a majority of the time, if they're doing really well, he caught him in a closed guard Kimura.
Yeah.
Not that.
Yeah.
Or he got him in a scissor sweep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right? Lapel guards.
Or a lumberjack. Not the lumberjack.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lumberjack.
By golly.
Yeah. So
Caught
to me,
him.
I just laugh. That's the reason I made a board in my school here that's all the fun, like a lot of the fundamental stuff with the self-defense. And it's a lot, but it's not a lot. But then when I tell the students, take a picture of it, because there's and we've heard this analogy too, like here's a tree, and then I'm going to give you the fundamental tree of jiu-jitsu, and then there's all these branches that you can learn on your own, and you come to open mats and drill.
Yeah.
I said, because that board may be only 30 techniques, but there's probably 30,000 branches of that board. But if you don't have the main part of the tree firm and ready to go, everything else crumbles off. It dies. So that's kind of my analogy to jiu-jitsu. And what's the percentage that's going to stick around for 10 years or more anyway? So they better learn that basic foundation of jiu-jitsu, or they just wasted their money.
Yeah. And that's what they're going to be left with, I guess. Yeah, you're right about that. I'm glad I came through a jiu-jitsu school that was like very, very fundamental based. Like, I had a student that was in the military, and he would have to travel the country and stuff, and internationally as well. And when he'd go to different places for like contracts and stuff, he would go to jiu-jitsu places. And he said a couple of places he went to would call his jiu-jitsu old school. He's like, man, you're real old school. He's like, I also tapped them all out too. And I was like,
exactly. Yeah.
Because he said a lot of the different games that he would play in certain places, they said like, because he was playing half guard and close guard and shield guard and stuff. Because my original roots in Hibero Jiu-Jitsu with Sanji and Salo Hibero, like it's that type of jiu-jitsu,
right.
Which, I mean, I don't know if you saw, did you see Sanji at Europeans?
Yep, I sure did, yeah.
Close guard cross
there
choke,
it was, yeah.
put people to sleep.
Exactly.
I mean, and it's just
because that's old school,
and
people don't respect it. And then when they start getting choked, they're still not respecting it until
like, you gonna give me with this cross? Yes, he will put you to sleep.
Exactly.
It's I always like the word. Who's it? Rafael Lovato would always say timeless jiu-jitsu.
Timeless jiu-jitsu
instead of old school.
And you think about the people that we've met and we've learned from, that from Marcelo to JT to Shanji to Salo to the list goes on. Lucas Lepri,
sure.
Bernardo Faria. I think I was talking to a student yesterday. It's control and pressure that opens up everything. Mm-hmm. If you don't know how to control someone and you don't know how to pressure someone, and they're like, well, what if I'm on bottom? You can still pressure someone due to your defensive skills.
Sure.
So sometimes, and you've rolled with people that are really, really good, that you're in a dominant position, but you still feel like you're not in a dominant position.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to have those concepts down of understanding control and pressure before you even start to think about, hey, I'm going to catch a arm triangle, or I'm going to get a American. No, you're not. Not if you don't know how to put them in that position of control.
Yeah.
And that's where people miss too. A lot of times with the beginners, I'll just have them hold that person down for 30 seconds and see how easy it is. And I'll tell the person on bottom, you try to run out the exit. Your goal is to get out of here. And so they got to hold them down. And they're like, that'll be easy. I'm like, we'll see how tired you are. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see you in 30 seconds. Sure enough, they're like, this is a little bit harder than I thought.
Some of the ones, like you were saying, like when you roll with someone a little bit high level, like say JT. When I roll with JT, I play a lot of like my half guard game, and I try to play octopus guard or go for underhooks. I go into shield a lot, play my butterflies. JT showed me what was wrong, like a gentleman actually, and just cross-faced the shit out of me.
Big time. And he pulled you in.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, it showed me what was wrong. And then he told me, he was like, here, this is what you're, and by God, I'm like, I'm working on that.
Right.
Because I was getting that thing to work all the time.
Right.
It was like, it just shows you where you've got to learn. It shows you, not only the levels, but that, I'm a pretty good black belt.
Right.
I'm not the best in the world or anything. I won some competitions. I went professional in fighting, and JT just like handshaked, shut down my guard. Just like, hi, sir, here, I'm just going to score points on you now.
I think what I meant by levels is
Sure.
you are going to 99.99%. The technique that you do was solid,
Gonna work.
smash
Yep.
them. But then now you're getting it to now it's going to go 100% because now you're learning a little tweak. And I think that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu is we never stop learning. Every roll is a learning experience. Every time we try something's a learning experience. I'm 4th degree, you're second degree. Yeah, second degree. But we're still in our head.
Yeah.
We got to keep going. We got to keep learning the scissor sweep a different way. We've got a reaction from this guy that's different than I've never seen that before when I try to do a hip bump or I try to do entry into an X guard or something. So that's the thing where if I'm 55 going on 56, you're 41, just turned
41, man.
Yesterday, right? Happy birthday. Thanks, you're still gonna try to tweak and get better and better if it's for sparring competition or just for teaching. And that's what drives me too. That's just keeps me going.
A couple years back, we had Sanji up in Toledo, and this was pre-pandemic, so I'm gonna guess maybe like
that was at Dion's.
No, this was one before that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was probably like 2019, 2020. It's the year that his Diamond Guards came out, whatever. But it was the Diamond Concepts that he did, and he came into Toledo for a seminar. And he was talking about, like, we're going to work on defense and stuff. And I heard, like, groans. Like, as in, like, they wanted to see worm guard or something like that. It completely changed my defensive game. Offensive, too, because then you score from it. But it's like his concepts, he called them advanced basics. And maybe if I was blue belt at the time, maybe I wouldn't have gotten so much out of it. It was probably because I was a black belt that
you couldn't understand it. The
that I
details.
was like, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
Like he was doing like little things too.
Right.
And he even joked and he's like, if you have my guard retention DVD from 10 years ago, he's like, just throw it away. He said, he goes, I'll sign it for a collector's item if you want. He goes, but don't watch it anymore.
Yeah.
This is the new stuff. And I'm like, that was arguably the best ever. I mean, he's in the top 5. That's not the point. But like, this is a guy who's coming back around and saying something I sold you 10 years ago. I'm not going to sell you anymore.
Right.
I'm going to sell you something
because he's
better.
updated it.
Yeah, he's updating it.
And not to say that doesn't work, but now he's growing.
Correct.
He's growing with his jiu-jitsu.
Exactly. He's like, exactly. It's not like the standard hip escape that you'd see on a DVD in 2001 wouldn't work, but it's like we've put a little bit more on it because now there's a little bit more to worry about. And it's like, or just even the way that I teach kids, like I'll teach kind of a little bit more palatable, simpler version of it. And it's like, okay, now that person's a purple belt now instead of, an 11-year-old, something like that, where it has to become more complex, but you use the same energy as that as a black belt though, and you're going to keep getting better all the time. It's like, there's something, I guarantee if you go watch a purple belt teach a class, you're probably going to pick up something. I mean, if you're, you know what I mean? It's
I've always said that. It's like I've visited schools where I've
no offense, purple belts.
No, that's what I was going to say. I've went to schools and where was I at? In Athens, Ohio. Yeah, Ohio University. That's in Athens, right?
Yeah.
Stopped by a school. And it was one of the best classes I've ever taken. It was more self-defense based, but it was a punch defense series, and it was sharp. I was like, it made an impact. And there was only, I think it was there's 3 people there, afternoon class. It was unbelievable. But you tell some people like, oh, I thought, I'm like, no, you can learn.
Yeah.
There can be some really passionate purple belts. There can be some, there can be. We've also met black belts that are really. Not a lot of them, but I have met some that aren't really great instructors. Yeah. So you gotta have an open mind, and you gotta know what you're learning, and get in there and know that you can learn from everybody.
And we've had black belts that they just ain't passionate about it too. That I think everyone's kind of met a person when they've went in there that there's just not a lot of like enthusiasm. There's not a lot of that thing that we talked about earlier.
Or they're on their phones. They're just not. They're not.
Exactly.
The love's not there anymore.
They're not engaged at all. It's like absentism. Yeah. They're there, but they're not. And it's like, sure, give me the purple belt that knows something. I mean, I got also, by the way, it's like one of my purple belts, Kyle, that I had on the podcast. He's also a black belt in judo. He's also a university professor. He's also, he was a 2-sport athlete in college. It's like he's put some things together too. And it's like, and to your other point too, you were at another academy and you're meeting someone else, and they're trying to teach you something too. So it's like there's something to that as well. So the experience,
and it comes back to what we said at the beginning of this. It's like you can sense that passion, and like you can see it in someone that like they prepared this lesson, right?
Yeah.
They're like, man, he's ready, or
ready
she's
to
ready.
teach you something.
Yeah, they're ready to go, and that's the reason. Again, going back to like going to a good jiu-jitsu academy, is you're going to know pretty much right off how passionate is this school owner, how passionate are these instructors. You're going to know right away if they're not paying attention, or they're showing up late, or they're not doing that, and they're not really into it. You're going to know within a couple classes.
Yeah,
is this the fit for me, or is it not the fit for me?
Yeah. Or with that, on the next on my notes here, that some instructors that don't show up.
Yeah. Going to bring up the story.
So
yeah.
I have this on my notes too, guys, and we were kind of debating on whether to talk about it a little bit, and I decided to, not as a means of like kind of talking smack about something, but really it's like we want our students to know, and people in the jiu-jitsu like community, originally when this is about the Keenan Cornelius story about how he anybody that's just listening and doesn't know anything about it, a few years back, we signed him up for a seminar. He was going to be one day at Todd's and then the next day at mine. And he basically made up a bunch of stories on how he wasn't going to make it. He was telling us his Tesla was down on the highway. It was broken down. He couldn't get a ride. And then he was saying that it was his mental health and that he was having a bad day. And then he goes on a podcast with Craig Jones a couple months ago and says it was about the travel accommodations and stuff, which he made his own travel accommodations, and Todd was even going to fly him first class.
Yeah, I was going to do anything I could to get him here. That's for sure.
Like he was going to come in and teach worm guard, which it was kind of a sad situation. It wasn't a money thing. They did end up, returning everybody's money, but I mean, we had people driving in that still drove in because Todd came down and taught a seminar at my gym, and I came up and I taught a seminar up here in worm guard in Monroe.
Yeah.
But it was like one of the situations where when you deal with someone who's like a JT Torres, and you were like excited to have a weekend of like JT teaching you jiu-jitsu, that's what you got,
right?
Like what was advertised,
yeah.
Like, and he said it early, like, hey, I'm just going to go to the hotel. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be hanging out. And Todd was like, whatever, you know, that's your personality style. Yeah. Absolutely. Like we weren't saying anything there, but it was like worm guard at that time was like really kind of a
You're
hot
talking
thing.
about Keenan.
Yeah,
because certain instructors, like some people, if they're in competition mode, like when Mikey Musumeci, they want to rest, they want to do jiu-jitsu, they want to rest, they want to do jiu-jitsu. Totally understand that. Yeah. Even if you want to eat by yourself, because when I was professional running, a lot of times I understand that. I didn't want to really socialize. I wanted to do my job, go to sleep, get ready, recovery. And then other people are maybe they're super social. They want to go out for chips and salsa at Amaya's and talk about jiu-jitsu. So I totally understand that when we host. But, with the Keenan situation, it was just the way I feel like the way Keenan handled it. And I sent him a couple text messages like, if you would have just said, hey, I can't make it. I'm sorry. I'm having issues. I just can't make it. I'm having some personal issues. No problem. But, it just kept going with these different excuses. And then, one of the things that on the podcast that, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it's like, I don't know why I worry about those people, like about, in this situation where he backed out. It's like, if it wasn't for us people, us black belts and us brown belts and purple belts and blue belts and white belts that are big fans of someone like Keenan, they don't have a platform to be able to be successful. They don't have students to show up and pay their money for their monthly fees. So I think you always have to think about that. And then I think another thing, if you're younger, you don't really think as much. And now that I'm older, I can give that advice like, hey, if you have to cross that bridge again, be a little bit more respectful. Know that it's the people that are, the white belts, the blue belts, the purples, the ones that are instant messaging you or trying to, buy your instructionals. Those are the ones that are going to drive your business when you're 50, who's Keenan? That's what you have to think about when you're a little bit older. So it was a tough weekend, and it's just, I think he probably learned a lesson. We learned a lesson, and
you'd like to think, but that podcast happened like months after.
True.
That he was just. I mean, he was texting us about how he's like, I don't have to tell you about my mental health and all this. And then he was on Reddit underneath a fake username and stuff and was like trying to say he was going to sue people and stuff. And I'm like, bro,
defamation or something, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. We just want to do lapel guard.
Right.
Like, we were just like excited for jiu-jitsu and stuff. And it just, I'll use one of your quotes that you told me on that one. You're like, what was it?
Is it X-rated or no?
No.
Okay.
Let's go.
No.
The windshield's this big, the rear view's this big. You know, about we went in and we taught jiu-jitsu that weekend and everybody had a good time. I gained 2 seminars off that.
Yeah.
Two people that were here went back and told their people, and then they called me up and I went and I did seminars at their place.
Yeah.
So
there, I guess, you got to look at the positive that came out of it. I try to do that now that I'm older, instead of hanging on to anger or hanging on to something that's going to bring me down. I honestly, I hope the best for Keenan. I hope that he learned a lesson off of this. Will I invite him back here for a seminar? Probably not. No. Due to that experience, you probably won't either. But again, I don't have any ill will. It is what it is. I learned. I've had 99% of the seminars here have been fantastic, and a lot of people in this region have learned a lot here from different schools. Yeah. And we've come down to Findlay. We've went to different schools to learn from, and that's all I want at the end of the day. But hopefully Keenan learned the lesson that it's the ones with the white belts, the blue belts, the brown, purple, brown, and the black belts that are maybe hobbyists that are paying his bills that are driving him forward. And time flies by and people won't forget. So treat people nice when you can treat them nice, and be respectful. And that's really my thinking on it.
Like, you won't hear us saying anything bad about JT Torres, right? I'm just saying, JT came in and he was not only a gentleman, and taught so much good information and stuff, and just the attitude in general. Those are the people that you want to follow. Like, you want to follow that person that's gonna come in and try to do their best, even if it's those people.
JT was paid. I think his the deal was 2 hours. I believe it's 2 hour, maybe 3, because he's come twice. He stays here for like 5 or 6 hours. Always. He had a big jug of water, like a gallon jug, rolls with everyone. And again, we're talking about JT, but think about, we've mentioned this names that, we've been fortunate to learn from. JT, George, Bernardo Faria, Josh Hinger, Jeff Glover, Dean Lister, Lucas Laprie, Micah Musameshi, Pedro Pajares, Luis Pajares, Tynan Dalpra. I mean, so that's what I'm saying. 99% of the experiences that we've had have been dream experiences. It's like fantasy jiu-jitsu world. Yeah. It's just, it's hard to bat 1,000, and we found that out. Is that saying it nice?
I was gonna say Emily. We went and saw her up at
Emily
Flint.
Kwok. Oh yeah,
Emily Kwok.
And Brianna's come here twice. Yep. I mean, again, it's 99%. Awesome people, awesome instruction. They're doing great things in the jiu-jitsu community. I have nothing but great things to say, but that one experience with Keenan, the experience that we had, was not a good experience. And again, hopefully he learned a lesson that there's a lot of people that are fans of his, that he needs to remember that and treat people accordingly.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, just kind of segueing just past a negative experience and some of the things that we do community-wise too, outside of some of the seminars, is our dual events. And that's kind of what I wanted to wrap up the podcast with, was talking about dual events. We got another one on March 1st that I'll talk to you about coming up. You'll be out of town on that one, you said?
Birthday. I'm going to my daughter's birthday in Florida.
I'm going to go yell at Nate next door.
Yeah, he'll be ready.
So Nate will be ready.
Yeah.
But that we try to put on some of our dual events, and they're kind of like sub-competition, I guess, if you will. We always set them up to be as close to competition standards as we can, but we also do it to not only get our people some experience, but also to meet people in the community. We always tag a charity onto it.
Yes.
So the duels don't cost anything, but we just accept donations, and we always raise money for a good cause. Raising a couple $100, getting together, choking your friends, getting good competition.
I just think it's a cool. I think what did we start these about 4 years ago?
It was right after the pandemic. When we started
being able to. Had some different teams involved. I just think it's a great way, because you and I both know there's starting jiu-jitsu, which is nerve-wracking, right? And then there's that first spar when people are just sparring, right, or situational training, and then you can step it up and go, okay, now we're going to do a dual meet, where it's not like in a tournament setting, but it's still pretty pressure packed when Findlay Jiu-Jitsu Jiu-Jitsu's on this side of the mat, Monroe Jiu-Jitsu's over here, or Braz is over here.
It's competitive.
And then two people come out and all eyes are on you. It takes your Jiu-Jitsu, to me, it levels your Jiu-Jitsu up, because then you're under more pressure. The grips are different. The excitement's different. And then you can take it the next step is going to a tournament. It could be a Fuji, could be a low, and then you go IBJJF, and it keeps going. But I do think it's just an awesome way, number one, to help people, help charities. It kind of puts people in their first time. A lot of people, they've never competed in anything. Yeah. So, it puts them out there on the spot, and they're out there by themselves on the island of competition. And most importantly, it builds the jiu-jitsu community, and it's cost effective.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because a lot of tournaments, again, I love tournaments. People have some great local tournaments. You have your tournament. We back Dion's tournament, a lot of great tournaments. But again, some people just can't afford to go to tournaments. And I know people say, and some people say, no, they should be able to. Well, there's some people that just can't, and they just won't. But this is a great way to bring people together and put them in a competition environment. I see it even
a step past that. I guess just business-wise, I've always tried to find another way we can do something. Yeah. If this is what our goal is, then how can we do it? Because, I've had people in our Jiu-Jitsu Academy that have done the duels tournaments that then decided, hey, I do want to compete.
Yes.
Like they changed their mind.
Another step.
Yeah. And then I've got people that just do the dual ones, but they also want to support the people who want to move on and do tournaments. Yeah. I have businessmen and women in my jiu-jitsu community that now want to sponsor a kid.
Yes.
Because the kid did a duel, and now the kid wants to do a tournament. And they're like, family doesn't have a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. And I shout out to some of my parents on there that they go and they ask businesses and stuff, and we've gotten our kids, like I said, sponsored.
Yeah.
Because they want to do it. And so sometimes it's not even about themselves. It's about seeing other people try to chase their dreams a little bit.
And that's the positive vibe we were talking about, right? You're doing positive things in Finley. We're doing things together. Then, this team jumps in, this team jumps in. It's just not about, hey, Monroe Jiu-Jitsu beat Finley Jiu-Jitsu or Finley. It's not. It's about the experience, and we're all helping each other, and we're leveling each other up. That should be the goal.
I told our kids the other day, like this was like when we do a duel or something. I'm like, you guys could lose every single match. Like you could. We could go out and have a duel or have a tournament, and you could lose every single match. But if each one of those matches you did your best in each one of them, and you got caught because you made a mistake, it wasn't a lack of effort. I said, I'm not going to be upset. I was like, we could win every match, and you could gloat about it, and I would be more pissed off.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
I said that word to the kids.
100%.
Yeah, that it's like you could do something outside of the wins that would ruin everything, like your attitude or things like that. I'm like, I would rather us lose every match and lose it like a gentleman and learn something from it and be able to get better off of it. Because I heard it was a Hodger Gracie quote where he said, "Do you remember all those matches he lost at Blue Belt?" Like, me neither. No. Like,
No.
They're kids, number one. They're going to lose things. They're going to do things wrong, and it's like, who cares?
And adults do too.
Adults do too. Yeah. Same energy, dude.
Same thing.
If someone goes out and gets choked because they make a mistake.
Teaching adults and kids, including ourselves, like, if we win or lose a match, you shake hands, you shake the coach's hand, you say, hey, great effort, let's get after it. Mm-hmm. We've been in tournaments, we've both won and lost. You still shake the person's hand, and you think about, even in your wins, you're like, well, I probably could have done this better. And then your losses, well, I probably could have done this better. Because we're never gonna walk off the mat and go, that was perfection. I don't need to improve ever again.
It takes me a while to have that moment if I should have done this more.
Because you're not going to say it out loud.
Because I'm usually really, really upset.
Yeah, because you're good, because you're hard on yourself. Right? And that's the way in my running and my jiu-jitsu, I'm probably too self-critical. I don't accept good for some reason. I only remember bad things, which is, I don't know if that's, I don't know.
That's because you expect it of yourself.
Yeah,
I mean, that's usually how the psychology works.
I remember the losses, and I majored in psych, and I tried to do like a analysis of myself, and I never got it. But
my guy Kyle, the first episode we talked about the psychology of things. I'm not sure if we got into this one, but when a lot of overperformers, they always assume that they're going to win, and sometimes that's our ego or for whatever reason too. But when we lose, we tend to remember them a lot more because we expected to win.
Yeah.
And I'll use my buddy Brent Ensko, shout out Brent, Downriver Jiu-Jitsu, but he told me a quote one time that he said, you show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
you better lose with grace and dignity a bit, and don't be, like we teach our kids in something, but when you work so hard, of course you're going to be upset if
Right.
you lose. It's
Right.
like, I put a lot into this.
of
Of
work.
course I'm mad.
Yeah.
But then I don't stop there with my pity party. I usually give me 15, 20 minutes to get over my
Right.
little pity party, and then I'm back to work.
Yeah,
probably.
and then you just get better. But at the end of the day, there's going to be losses. But within
you
the loss,
deal
you can
with them.
still say, I did the absolute best that I could possibly do on the day. That's all you can do. You know, and the frustration is going to be there. I just, you know, with my running and going back to like, I you know, if I even lost one interval, or if I, you know, in the weight room, if I didn't hit a certain rep, those still scar me to this day, and it's been 30 years or something. You know, it's like if I lost a tempo run, and I really never, like I looked at University of Tennessee, all the workouts, or all my workouts at Monroe High School, I tried to win every single workout. Like from the 400 meter repeats to the mile repeats to the 15K tempos, you know, every practice. And again, going back to practicing with a purpose, every practice, there should be no like, oh, today's I'm going to just go there and do nothing.
Yeah.
You know, at least in my mind.
It's still focused, even if it's low intensity,
But
right?
now there is certain people, now I have to jump back and backtrack a little bit. There are certain people that join jiu-jitsu or join a running club or join a strength club, and they just need community. They don't need that, you know, some people don't need that super.
It might not be high performance, but it still should be targeted,
they should be
right?
challenged.
Yeah.
They should be challenged. But, you know, as you and I both know, a lot of times people need, hey, how's it going today? They have nobody to talk to.
Yeah.
This is their friendship, too. That's another thing that we do that sometimes I think we might forget, how important talking to people in the community that we build in our gyms, in our businesses, that it's maybe that person's having a really bad time.
Yeah.
And they just need to come in and maybe not even do the workout. They just want to talk for 20 minutes. Now, I know that sometimes we get stuck for 3 or 4 hours. You know, that's going to be the decision we have to make.
Yeah.
Because we do, you know, that's what it is. But again, we do, that's the way I look at a jiu-jitsu academy, a running club, or, you know, a lifting club. We're doing a lot more for the community than just building that skill set. Yeah. We're helping a lot of people, from the kids to the adults.
I mean, that's always the thing. I think me and you both have just tried to be good examples the best we can be. I mean, we're both goofs and stuff. It's like
we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Me and Todd have both, like, we're cut from the same cloth on that one. But it's like, but we always, I guess, give out that vibe of, you know, we're going to try to be positive. We're going to try to do the best we can. We're going to try to teach you really good jiu-jitsu. Yeah. We're still going to keep being who we are.
Right.
That's the other thing that I just, you know, when we keep moving forward with our academies and everything else, like, Todd put up that sign and not even caring if anybody thought it looked cool.
Yeah.
It does, but I know my friend Todd, and he was like, I like that sign a lot. It's going there.
Yeah. And
you know what I mean?
And it's on my arm, too. There it is, yeah.
Only snap when
necessary. Yeah. And the story behind that is my students they say, Coach, when you roll, you really don't move that much. And I say, when I move or when I snap, I'm going to make the snap count. Because I've only got so many snaps left at age 55, 66, so I keep them in tight. So that's the story behind the old snap and turtle with the cauliflower ear. That one of my students, Eric Molka, big shout out, drew that, and he's a great tattoo artist out of Tecumseh. So
turtles have ears.
Yep, the turtle.
Cauliflower.
He made that ear for me. So yeah,
it's pretty awesome.
So
man.
it's good stuff. Yep.
Well, hey, just to get it wrapped up here, a couple of the shout-outs that we were saying, too. Obviously, Monroe Jiu-Jitsu, that's where we're filming our podcast today, Monroe, Michigan. And anybody else you'd like to shout out? Who are your guys that opened it up again, too? Matt and...
Oh, Matt Miller is Saline Jiu-Jitsu. He's opened up last week in Saline, Michigan. Check him out at salinejiu-jitsu.com, I think, but just you can Google it. And then Adam Ackerman has opened up probably within the next month in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And he's Upstream Jiu-Jitsu. Outside of that, I like the Midwest, man. We have some cool schools. I mean, when people come in here, I'm like, try everybody. And that's we didn't touch on this. We could talk about. I tell my students, go to these different schools and feel a different vibe and learn some different techniques. I'm not here to hold your jiu-jitsu back. Learn as much as you can when you're living and enjoy your jiu-jitsu journey. But there's just a lot of great people that we've met that own schools in this area. We'd be here all day if we want to give all those shout outs. I think the other shout outs that I always like to talk about is the importance of the good people in my life that guided me to get to this position. And that, you know, with my family coming first, and then, you know, from Coach Kleinsmith, Coach Randy Monday, Coach Dave Bork, my high school coach, big player in my life. Let's see, Coach Doug Brown, Coach Watts, Soneca, Padrino Bandao, and then Luis Pajares and Pedro Pajares. You know, huge impacts in my life. And then my wife, Lindsay, does an amazing job. As you know, she supports my crazy butt a lot when I'm not sleeping or I'm studying technique.
You're both supported by great women.
Yeah.
Shout out Amy Beckley.
Yeah. So you know, she's there when I'm studying technique at 3:30 in the morning. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, yeah, "I'm studying some."
You know.
Yeah, you know, exactly. She knows now. So anyway, I think, as you know, you have great people in your life that you could talk about, but I always like to give shout outs when I'm doing podcasts or any type of appearance, because if it wasn't for those people and my great friends that supported me from the day that I was running to the day that, you know, to the day when I opened up my business here, I've got some really awesome friends that have supported me over the years, and continue to grow those relationships. And most importantly, make an impact every single day and work your can off and enjoy doing it.
Awesome. Quick shout out just to our other schools too that are open in the area. Fostoria Jiu-Jitsu, that's my buddy Sabe that opened that place, and US Jiu-Jitsu in Upper Sandusky.
And he just got promoted,
Rodney.
right? Didn't he?
Sabe got promoted to brown belt.
That's it, yeah. Yep.
Rodney very soon to follow as well too.
Yeah,
so.
and his school, Rodney's school, is in
Upper Sandusky,
Upper
Ohio.
Sandusky,
Yep.
yeah.
So people listening to the podcast down in our area as well, if you're living in those towns too, Fostoria, Upper Sandusky, and then Findlay Jiu-Jitsu Academy is my home base. Yeah, thank you, Todd. Thank you for letting us come into the gym. It's always great every time that we come up here, because either I'm learning cool jiu-jitsu or just hanging out with my friend Todd or going over to get tacos or something. Like, you know, we really love
Shout out to Amayas.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he's one of my students. Tino Amaya he's heading toward black belt, and he also owns a lot of great businesses here in town. But we always go to Amaya's after our events here and tear up some chips and salsa.
And that's I mean, not to even get back into it as we're closing, but we're just like trying to create big communities of good people that are just trying to help and
genuine people.
Yeah, genuine.
No
people.
BS.
That's right.
Let's just do it.
You got it, man. Well, Todd, thank you very much too.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you guys for listening to the podcast today as well.